Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, this is an absolutely horrible story. It's, of course, the biggest story in the country right now. It broke late last night, and it is literally everywhere. The country, Israel, many around the world are in absolute shock and horror over what happened. This was at the Capitol Jewish Museum. It is in downtown Washington, D.C., a stone's throw away from the U.S. Attorney's Office, from the FBI field office. It is right there in downtown Washington, D.C., and here is now the absolute latest. There was a reception being held for young Jewish professionals in the D.C. area, along with members of Israel's embassy and Israeli embassy staff members. Apparently, it was a big shindig. It's there to celebrate Jewish culture, Jewish heritage, and Jewish contributions to Washington and the greater Washington, D.C. area. From all media reports, they said that the reception was packed. It was sold out. Many, many Jewish Americans and Israelis were there in their 20s, 30s, and early 40s. A left-wing gunman was seen by multiple witnesses to just be pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He was clearly waiting for people to exit the reception, knowing that everyone there was either Israeli or Jewish, i.e. either they were Jewish Americans or they were literally Israelis working at the Israeli embassy. 4 people walked out of the reception. They were done. They were leaving. They left the reception past 9 o'clock in the evening. Elias Rodriguez, age 30 years old, approached 4 of them, pulled out his gun, and emptied it into the crowd. There were 2 people laying on the ground, apparently life-threatening blood wounds, gunshot wounds. Yaron Lashinsky, an Israeli embassy staff member, a research assistant, spent 3 years in the Israeli Defense Forces, 28 years old, dead. His girlfriend and very soon-to-be fiancée, Sarah Lynn Milligan, lay on the ground bleeding, dead. Sarah Milligan is a Jewish American. She went to the University of Kansas to study, got her degree, went to American University, studied, got her degree. Yaron Lashinsky, according to embassy members, had just several days ago purchased an engagement ring. He was going to propose to Sarah Milligan in Jerusalem next week. They were to be engaged. They were to be married. They were in the prime of their lives, in their 20s, with the whole world in front of them, according to all staff members, wonderful salt of the earth people who loved each other dearly. Their families got along very well and were looking forward eventually to marriage and to children. That will never be. And what is even more shocking about this crime, this act of anti-Semitic terrorism, is that after this lunatic emptied his handgun and 2 of them lay on the ground, dying, and eventually they would be dead, he calmly threw away his gun, walked into the museum, into the freaking museum, and all but admitted that he did it. He even told the police that were inside where he had just thrown away his gun, dumped his gun. And then, as they were arresting him, cameras were appearing on the scene. Pandemonium was everywhere. He looked at the cameras and yelled and screamed, free, free Palestine. Listen now to Elias Rodriguez, 30 years old, literally not just admit to the crime, but chant the slogan of the Intifada. Chant the slogan of Hamas. Chant the slogan that you hear on college campuses all across this country. Free, free Palestine. He had now just killed 2 Jews in the name of the cause. Roll cut 12, Mike.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
Long live Hamas. Free, free Palestine. Now, this is a lunatic. Okay, this is a fanatic. There's no question about it. How you can, calmly, like ice in your veins, coolly, collected, walk up to 2 strangers who didn't have done nothing to you. Literally. Wouldn't know you from a hole in the wall. And you shoot them dead at point blank range. And then, look, he turns himself in. He wants to be arrested. He then turns to the camera, knowing that this is going to be his moment of glory, knowing that he's going to be now a hero, celebrated on the left, among Palestinians, among the pro-Hamas, the pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian movement across the United States and across the Middle East and across Europe. He now has become a celebrity, a terrorist celebrity. And he wants his 15 minutes of fame. And so he has to stand there and chant, free, free Palestine. My friends, this is a consequence of the anti-Semitism that we have seen explode in this country, and in particular at Harvard, at Columbia, at MIT, at college campuses everywhere. And my question now is very simple. Is Harvard going to be celebrating this today? Are the students at Harvard, is this going to be a day of celebration? At Columbia, are they going to hold even more protests and disrupt school, the campus and school activities? Are they going to wear their keffiyeh and wave the Palestinian flag and put this guy's picture on a poster or on a placard and hold him up as a hero and a martyr? Because this is now what is happening here in the United States of America. This is what incitement on college campuses leads to. This is what happens when you lie about Israel committing genocide in Gaza. When you stand there and repeatedly, again and again and again, you have the Ilhan Omars, the Rashida Tlaibs, the AOCs, the Bernie Sanders, the Elizabeth Warrens, constantly demonizing Jews, Jewish people, Israel, and constantly just mindlessly echoing the cheap genocidal slogans of Hamas and those that want to see Israel wiped off the face of the earth. This was an act of naked anti-Semitic terrorism in the heart of the nation's capital. Donald Trump went to Truth Social and said this was clearly an act of anti-Semitic terrorist murder. And as he put it, there is too much hatred, too much radicalism now in the United States. On college campuses, this must end and end now. Pam Bondi basically rushed from her apartment to go to the scene. And you can see the horror on her face. She could not believe this is not the Gaza Strip. This is not Ramallah. This is not the West Bank. They are now bringing the Intifada into the United States of America. And it has now gone from chanting genocidal slogans and occupying buildings and holding janitors hostage and targeting and physically attacking Jewish students on campus to now the next level, to now targeting them, stalking them, waiting for them, and then when they're vulnerable or they're walking out onto the streets, point blank, boom, 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 killing them right there. Now, let me tell you, and this, I'm sorry, but the truth now needs to be spoken. I don't want to see America become Greater Palestine. I don't want to see America become like the Middle East. And I hold far-left Democrats responsible for this. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, anti-Semitic terror now comes to the heart of Washington, D.C. It's the biggest story in the country. I mean, it broke late last night, and President Trump is weighing in. What is amazing is that you have members of Congress on the Republican side weighing in. But so far, it is crickets from many, many Democrats. Many Democrats are strangely silent. And I wonder why that is. And I just, I got to say this. When I first heard the news, and here you have a couple about to be engaged, he was going to propose, Yaron Lashinsky was going to propose to Sarah Milligan next week in Jerusalem. She's a Jewish American. He's an Israeli staff member, works in the embassy in the Israeli embassy in the United States. And they're both, what was their crime? What was their great sin? They went to a reception for young Jewish professionals at the Capitol Jewish Museum, right near the FBI field office, right next to the U.S. Attorney's office. I mean, I lived in D.C. for over 10 years. I know that area extremely well. It's a very nice area. It's a posh area, a lot of good restaurants, cafes, right there in downtown D.C. And they walk out after 9 o'clock in the evening. And by the way, that's very typical for D.C. because people get up early because they work early. So basically by 9 o'clock, receptions are pretty much, they're starting to wind down. And this deranged, anti-Semitic, left-wing lunatic is just waiting and waiting and waiting, calmly, coolly. He's looking to kill Jews. He's waiting for them to come out of this reception at this Jewish museum. And then 4 of them come out, and this couple, part of the group of 4, and he calmly walks up to them, according now to multiple witnesses. And they turned around, and before you know it, boom, 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 shot after shot after shot after shot. Witnesses were aghast, screaming, yelling, crying. He, however, was like ice water in his veins. He was very, very composed. He showed hardly any emotion whatsoever. He then dumped his gun. He just threw his gun. And then deliberately, calmly walked back. He walked into the museum. He didn't want to even try to flee. He wasn't even looking to get away. He wanted to turn himself in. He wanted to get caught. And then he walked back into the museum and then told them, basically, as one of the police officers said, he practically admitted he did it. And then he said, by the way, here's where I threw the gun. So you can just, to get the gun. And they're like, oh my God, he just admitted to a terrorist massacre. And as they put the handcuffs on him, and this is now just outside the museum, and the cameras are rolling. People were there. The media arrived. I mean, you've got dead bodies now in the streets of Washington, D.C. And he's chanting, free, free Palestine, free, free Palestine. His eyes are cold. His eyes are dark. This is a man who has clearly been brainwashed, clearly been indoctrinated, clearly completely so self-righteous, so full of himself. He literally doesn't even blink at the prospect of, thinking you just murdered an innocent couple. A Jewish American, Sarah Milligan, and an Israeli diplomat, Yaron Lashinsky, who were in love and about to be engaged and about to be married. And this guy now thinks he's a hero of the resistance. Now, let me just say this, and then I want to open it up to the phone lines. First of all, I want to ask all of you, are you shocked? Are you shocked? I've predicted this was going to happen. I said it was inevitable. I said when you unleash this kind of a cancer of anti-Semitism and Jew hatred, when you unleash it like this at Columbia and Harvard and MIT and the Ivy Leagues and other elite universities, when you keep having these protesters chanting, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, death to the Jews, death to Israel, when you keep waving Hamas flags, when you start wearing the keffiyehs and you start occupying buildings and attacking, physically assaulting and targeting Jews and preventing them from going into the classroom, and start going on about how Jews are a sickness on the planet. Jews must be murdered. Jews must be eliminated. Israel must be wiped off the map. What do we want? Intifada. When do we want it? Now. That's one of their big chants. Intifada means an uprising against the Jews, against Israel, and against Jewish people all over the world. The Intifada has now come to the United States. And I said this is going to be more than just holding janitors hostage. It's going to be more than just occupying campus buildings. It's going to be more than shutting down campuses. I said, you watch. You're going to start to see acts of political terrorism and political murder take place in the United States. And this is the elephant in the room. When I heard the story initially, I thought, to be frank, I said, you're going to hear a name, something like Mahmoud Khalil, the other celebrity on the left, who was organizing all of these anti-Semitic protests and explosions of Jew hatred on campuses. Instead, it's a Latino. Obviously, Latinos are not to blame for this. I'm just saying the name is a Latino name. It's Elias Rodriguez. I was thinking there's going to be a Muslim-sounding name, an Arabic-sounding name, whatever. No, it's a Latino, an Hispanic. Why? Because they're being indoctrinated. It's not just about Latinos. What I'm saying is students and young activists and leftists are being indoctrinated on campuses all across the country. They're being indoctrinated through the media. And if they are, in the Democratic Party, the left wing of the Democratic Party, the hatred for the Jews and the hatred for Israel, that's what they do. That's par for the course. And so this guy thinks he's a freedom fighter. That's why he wants credit. That's why he wanted to be arrested. That's why he wanted to yell out his slogan, free, free Palestine. Who did he do it for? I killed these Jews in the name of Hamas and in the name of the Palestinian cause. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you now. Terror at the heart of Washington, D.C., a vicious, stunning, really shocking anti-Semitic terrorist attack. 2 staff members of the Israeli embassy shot dead after coming out of a reception at the Capital Jewish Museum. They were targeted because they were Jewish. It was clearly premeditated. One was an Israeli who worked at the embassy. Another one was a Jewish American, Sarah Milligan, who also worked at the embassy. They were going to be engaged next week in Jerusalem. They were deeply in love, apparently, and were planning to get married and have children. That will never happen. The shooter, the alleged gunman, is a 30-year-old leftist. Apparently, he was a member, at least for a while, of the Socialist Party of America, which is also, as you know, AOC's political party, and a party that's very close to Bernie Sanders and to the squad, again, to the far left of the Democratic Party, the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian wing. And he was a fellow traveler. He was from Chicago, this guy Rodriguez, and it's deliberate. It was premeditated. And when he killed him, as they lay on the streets bleeding to death, he went inside the museum, pretty much admitted that he did it, and then had them arrest him. And when they arrested him, he was chanting, "Free, free Palestine, free, free Palestine." Pam Bondi, upon hearing the news, practically in her apartment, obviously at the time, just put on a coat, went right down to the scene, and you can see the shock, the horror on her face. She could not believe it. But now the Intifada has now come to America. Roll cut 14, Mike.
Ambassador, our hearts go out to you and your staff. I spoke to the President of the United States multiple times tonight on behalf of the President. His prayers are with all of us, all of the Jewish community, everyone in Washington, D.C., state, local, and federal agencies, and our great U.S. Attorney, Jeanine Pirro, who will be prosecuting this case. We'll be doing everything in our power to keep all citizens safe, especially tonight our Jewish community. Our prayers go out. We have the FBI, all of our federal agencies will work hand in hand with you, Chief, as we have done, and you, Mayor, to do everything we can to keep our citizens safe. We will follow the facts, we will follow the law, and this defendant charged will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
I think it needs to go even further than that, to be honest. And I want to open it up now to the phone lines, 617-266-6868. We're not just talking about murder. We're talking about terror. And I think this person needs to be charged as a terrorist, this Elias Rodriguez, this scumbag, and literally throw the book at him. And now the problem is you've allowed this cancer of anti-Semitism to metastasize within the Democratic Party, on college campuses, in the universities, within the media, within popular culture. And so many Jews are now openly saying in America, they are shocked at this massacre, this cold-blooded murder that took place. They now fear more of these anti-Semitic attacks are going to come. Bibi Netanyahu released this statement, and he is absolutely outraged. He said that this was a horrifying anti-Semitic murder. Quote, "We are witness to the terrible cost of the anti-Semitism and wild incitement against the state of Israel. Blood libels against Israel have a cost in blood and must be fought to the utmost," Netanyahu said Thursday morning. "My heart grieves for the families of the young beloveds whose lives were cut short in a moment by an abhorrent anti-Semitic murderer." This has affected everyone in Israel, apparently. Here, the Jewish American community is in utter shock. They are in disbelief. This is what President Trump wrote on Truth Social in the early hours of this morning. Quote, "These horrible DC killings, based obviously on anti-Semitism, must end now." And now is in caps. "Hatred and radicalism have no place in the USA. Condolences to the families of the victims. So sad that such things as this can happen. God bless you all." So let me ask all of you, do you believe this is now going to be the first of more anti-Semitic terrorist murders to come? Is that your fear? To Jewish Americans, to those of you of the Jewish faith, the Jewish persuasion, are you now worried that you're going to see more attacks on consulates, on embassies, on Jews or at Jewish receptions or Jewish museums or Jewish gatherings all across the United States. Are you now concerned that this may be the beginning of a growing anti-Semitic bloodbath? And ultimately, to all of you listening out there, do you blame the Democratic Party, in particular the far left, for fostering this hatred of Jews, this hatred of the Jewish people, of Israel, this vile anti-Semitism? These university professors, you've coddled them, you've tolerated them, you've in many ways emboldened and enabled them. And my God, look at what you've unleashed. 617-266-6868. John in Lowell. Thanks for holding, John. You're going to kick us off. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
My pleasure, John.
I just want to say, I'm not surprised that this happened. We're pretty much funding Bibi's genocide of the Palestinian people. Not every Palestinian born is a terrorist. I mean, there was a lot of innocent people dying over there. We can't ignore that. I am not surprised it spilled onto our shores. It's sad. I agree. It should never happen. But, I mean, it's not surprising with what's going on over there and everything that's happening. I'm not surprised it washed onto our shores.
Well, this is what I find a bit funny, John. You're saying it's our funding of the war or whatever, sending military weapons to Israel, and you say, a genocide or whatever, the massacres that you say are taking place in Gaza. We've been sending how much to Ukraine? 10 times more to Ukraine. And you don't see Russians coming here and, disrupting college campuses and hijacking buildings and occupying buildings and now, gunning people down on the streets. And you would never, if this happened, if this was done, say, by a Russian terrorist, you would never say, oh, it's the weapons that we're sending to Ukraine. So the fact that there's a war going on somewhere else in the world, how does that justify bringing that war here? I mean, we fund a lot of wars around the world. 617-266-6868 is the number. This is, honestly, I don't get this. I just don't get this. Well, I do get it. But notice, you had John in Lowell, and he's like, well, it's almost inevitable because of what, we're giving weapons to Israel. Israel apparently is waging this genocidal war against the Palestinians in Gaza, so the argument goes. And so it's inevitable. You're going to start to see bodies dying everywhere. You're going to see a backlash. You're going to start to see terrorism and people being murdered outside of that region. So it's going to happen in Europe. It's going to happen here. It's almost inevitable. And notice they don't argue about this about any other war. Any other war. Objectively, there are many, many more Russians and Ukrainians being slaughtered than are dying in Gaza. And if I said to you that some guy called Elias Rodriguez, 30 years old, goes out and guns down, say, 2 Russians in Washington, D.C., or a Russian American, an American of Russian descent who graduated from the University of Kansas, and the other one is a diplomat who works at a Russian embassy, you would say, my God, that's cold-blooded terrorism. That's disgusting. That has no place in American society. Yet somehow we've come to accept the idea that what happens thousands of miles away, and by the way, we arm Ukraine infinitely more than we've ever armed Israel. It's not even close. But somehow, if it involves Israel and it involves the Jews, then what? Everybody and his grandmother has the right to disrupt college campuses, to make it a cause célèbre, to go out and block traffic and disrupt campuses and target Jewish citizens. And by the way, you don't even know if these Jews support the war in Gaza, don't support the war in Gaza. It doesn't matter. A Jew is a Jew is a Jew. And so they're rampaging on college campuses, and anybody who's a Jew, they target, they attack, they assault, they prevent or block them from going to classes. They kick them out of classes. And somehow it's all, well, it's inevitable. It happens. It's going to happen because of what's happening thousands of miles away. There is a new antisemitism rising in Europe, rising here. And look, just take what happened here. Just an obvious example. In the Netherlands, the Dutch used to be tolerant. Now they've imported a lot of Muslims. Those days are long gone. So you have Israeli soccer fans. All they're doing is following the Israeli national team. And they're at a game. And suddenly a crowd, a wild pack of pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian protesters go, look, Jews, Jews, Jews. And literally they are being chased and beaten on the streets of Amsterdam. Simply for being Jewish, simply because they wave the Israeli flag and they're following the Israeli national soccer team. And the attitude in Europe is, well, it's the war in Gaza. What does the war in Gaza have to do with a group of fans going to see a team play, and that justifies what? Yelling and screaming and chasing and beating them and taking sticks and smashing their heads open? And no one says, what does this have to do with us? Why are you importing this into our culture and into our society? If the Palestinians want to blow themselves up, if the Palestinians want to yell death to the Jews, if the Palestinians want to go free, free Palestine and celebrate, the murder of 2 civilians, then that's their business. How does this have to, we got to bring this garbage here? Here, in Providence, Rhode Island, which is about maybe 20 minutes from where I live. Okay, because I'm pretty much in the southern Massachusetts. I'm almost on the Rhode Island border. What was this, last week? Or the weekend? Whatever. It was just recently. They put the Palestinian flag at City Hall. Now, my obvious question is, why are we waving any foreign flag on City Hall? To me, there should be only one flag, which is the flag of the United States of America. But if you're going to put a freaking foreign flag, they're not putting, Canada or Great Britain or Australia or, say, in other words, how about a country that fought with us in World War I and World War II? Maybe has historically been an ally. How about if you're going to put a foreign flag, France, they gave us the Statue of Liberty. They helped us win our independence in 1776. No, you got to go for a pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian, anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish flag. In other words, terrorism, jihadism. That's the flag. You got to put a jihadist flag on the stake on City Hall in Providence, Rhode Island. Now, what does this have to do with the United States of America? So why are the quarrels thousands of miles away? Why does this have to be imported into the United States? And so now they're dropping like flies? Jewish Americans are dropping like flies? And it's like, well, it's the war in Gaza. We shouldn't arm them. You would never accept that argument for any other war. Any other war. I could give you a dozen wars that we have been funding either overtly or secretly around the world. Here, we've been funding the Kurds for God knows, I don't know how many years in the Middle East. You think it's okay if some pro-Turkish terrorist is waiting for Kurdish Americans outside of some reception and then says, hey, hey, bang, bang, bang. You know, so we're supposed to just stand back and say, well, stop arming the Kurds. If we just wouldn't arm the Kurds, this stuff wouldn't happen. We would never accept that. But with the Jews, with Israel, it's always different. Always a different standard. What I'm clearly seeing, and you're seeing it now everywhere, let's be honest with ourselves. Okay, let's talk cold turkey. There is a rise in antisemitism, a dangerous rise. You see it everywhere. And there is a growing reluctance to call it out and confront it. There is almost complete silence within the Democratic Party today. Maybe someone did condemn it. I don't know. But so far, nothing. Nothing. The Democratic Party is increasingly afraid of the Jew haters and anti-Semites that are increasingly dominating their party. The Jew haters and the anti-Semites have pretty much taken over our college campuses and the universities. And they're getting a very big foothold in the media and in corporate America. Now, we're not Europe. We're not there yet, but we're slowly getting there. So you've got murders of Jews, stabbings of Jews, shooting of Jews, or attacks on Jews simply because they're Jews all across Europe. And by the way, the Europeans do not arm the Israelis. The Europeans back the Palestinians, and they still have attacks on their soil. So if you think appeasing the Palestinians is going to stop this, just ask the French. No one, they're pretty much ready to recognize a Palestinian state. And French Jews are still being murdered and attacked in Paris and in cities all across France. Just to give an example. So this reasoning, it's just, I don't get it. I just don't get it. And my God, in the wake of the Holocaust and everything we know that happened, and in the wake of October 7th, and by the way, their leader now has come out. Do you know why they massacred all of those innocent Israeli women and children? Remember, who started the war in Gaza? It was Hamas. It was the Palestinians. They're the ones who launched that devastating attack into southern Israel. I mean, facts are facts. Their leader just came out and said, well, you know why we did it? In other words, I want you to think about this. Do you know why we murdered babies? Do you know why we raped Jewish women and then cut their heads off? Literally cut their heads off. Do you know why we did all this? Because Israel was on the verge of a peace deal with Saudi Arabia. And we knew that if Israel signed a peace deal with Saudi Arabia, there would be a permanent peace in the Middle East. And this would normalize and legitimize the state of Israel. And so, because of the Abraham Accords and the success that Trump had in bringing Arab states and Israel together in his first term. So they said, no. We can't have Saudi Arabia and Israel now have normalized relations. So we got to blow this thing sky high. How do you blow it sky high? Well, let's go in there in these kibbutzes and let's literally massacre innocent men, women, and children. And then when the Israelis want to root these savages out from Gaza, the Israelis are the bad guys. You can't make this up. So they cry for the Palestinians, but they never cry for a dead Jew. A dead Jew is always to blame for the death of a dead Jew. It's always, well, if it wasn't for the war in Gaza, maybe you wouldn't be shot dead coming out of a reception in Washington, D.C. Honestly, I don't know what to say. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Junior in Florida. Thanks for holding, Junior, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. First-time caller. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Junior?
Doing great. Taking the kids to school. And shout out to my wife who's listening on the other side of the town, going to work. If you can bear with me, I have a chronological earmarks for you about this. And Newark, New Jersey, mayor gets arrested. Congresswoman assaults ICE agents. Files were charged. AOC threatens, better not lay a finger on them. Hakeem Jeffries says this is a red line crossing. Congresswoman gets arrested, and lo and behold, this happens yesterday. I think these people should get investigated. I think the Democratic Party has to be either indirectly or directly with this.
Junior, I think you put your finger on something very, very important. I mean, look at the comments that AOC keeps making about Hamas. She's always excusing Hamas. She's always siding with Hamas. And they keep calling for more and more violence here in the United States. And look how they defend these thugs on these college campuses. Look how they're defending this guy, Mahmoud Khalil. I mean, really, he's a pro-Hamas supporter. So we're importing people into this country who literally are chanting in college campuses, death to the Jews. You know, literally, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, i.e. wipe every Jew off the face, wipe Israel, wipe off the face of the planet. Every Israeli Jew, wipe them out. I mean, you're right. So Hakeem Jeffries talks about red lines. They keep talking about we're going to take this to the streets. And now they're taking it to the streets. And no, what I find incredible, Junior, look, just a preliminary search of Elias Rodriguez. And I want to give Newsweek, by the way, a hat tip on this, okay? They're one of the few media outlets. He's a leftist. He's an AOC supporter. Big Bernie brother. Big supporter of the Socialist Party of America, which is, as I said, that's AOC's party. He's a man of the left. And he's a radical pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian man of the left. It's another example of left. It's not just pro-Palestinian terrorism. It's left-wing terrorism. You know, again, look, Junior, I don't care what people's race or ethnicity is. To me, we're all children of God. So please don't misunderstand me. But if I'm going to see an act of anti-Semitic murder, okay, terrorism in Washington, D.C., in the name, he's shouting it, free, free Palestine, free, free Palestine. To me, I'd say, well, is he of Palestinian descent? Is he, a Muslim? Is he, right? I mean, that's okay. It's something related to their cause. The guy's Elias Rodriguez. What the hell does that have to do with free, free Palestine? So what that shows to me is here's another lefty who has been indoctrinated, radicalized, and brainwashed to such a degree. He's become so desensitized. And from everything I'm reading about this guy, this is not, people aren't saying about him, oh, he was always a murderer, like there was always something off about him. They go, no, he's a progressive activist. The guy's been in progressive causes after progressive causes. He's a hardcore Democrat. And so he's just been so desensitized. You keep hearing it over and over. Kill the Jews, kill the Jews, kill the Jews. Israel is evil. Israel is evil. From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. And so he said, okay, bang, 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 bang. And no remorse. I mean, Junior, that's the frightening thing. That's the fanaticism of the radical left. They will kill you without blinking an eye. And then, here's where I dumped the gun. I mean, there's chilling pictures now coming out, images of him being arrested. And he's like talking to them like, yeah, get my hand here. Yeah, don't forget my hand there. Yeah, no, the gun is right there. The gun is right there. And it's like, I don't know, me going through the TSA. So do you want the belt off? Would you like my shoes off? How would you like me to go through the scan here? And then he's just looking at the cameras and he goes, free Palestine, free Palestine. Like, I did it. I did it. I'm going to be a hero now. Now, you mark my words, Junior. I'm going to give you the last word, I promise. The way the left has lionized Luigi Mangione, the way he's got all these fans for killing that CEO of that healthcare company, you watch. They're going to turn this guy into a cause célèbre, just like Luigi Mangione. He's sexy. He's good looking. He's a freedom fighter. You watch. He's being framed by the system. Free him. Free Elias. You watch. They're going to start holding rallies in his name and in his honor. I'm telling you, it's like as sure as the sun is going to rise tomorrow. Now, what does that tell you about the sickness on the left and among the Democratic Party? Final word to you, Junior.
I think these people, the Democratic Party has sleeping cells, and up on call, they militarily speaking, they obey command and do these atrocities. If this guy is a student, has a student visa, should be revoked and he should be deported.
Well, Junior, that's another thing. How the media now they're not quick to give us his background. I've got like Dave in Pennsylvania, our Western PA correspondent, is like, Jeff, is he an illegal? I don't think so. I mean, I may be wrong. But that's the thing. All we know is he's from Chicago, that he is a leftist, that he was in many progressive causes, that he at one time was a member of the branch of I'm just going by Newsweek now, the Socialist Party of America. So he's a lefty. There's no question about it. But outside of that, they're very scant on the details. Now, why is that? I can tell you this. If this was a Trump supporter, and if this was a MAGA terrorist, Junior, I could tell you who his third cousin is. They would, I would, I could tell you as the elementary school he went to, the high school he went to, his girlfriends, I would know everything about the guy by now. So clearly they're trying to whitewash his background. And I agree with you. I think there are a lot of sleeper cells. And I think the Democrats are starting to activate them. And we're starting to see it now. Junior, I want to thank you for your courage, because you're saying what many people are thinking, but don't have the guts to say. Junior, have a wonderful day, and God bless you, my friend. Arthur in Chestnut Hill, thanks for holding, Arthur, and welcome.
You hear over and over again from these people, free Palestine. Well, you know what? Israel freed Palestine and gave them a free state. And because there's so much misinformation and these idiots aren't educated, and this media machine that we have doesn't broadcast the truth. The truth isn't told in schools and educational institutions, that people are easily swayed and turned into monsters like this guy. And he threw the gun away so he wouldn't be shot because he's a coward. Doesn't take much to go up and kill unarmed people who aren't suspecting. But you know what? No matter what, nobody wants these Palestinians. That's why Israel finally woke up and is going to try to get rid of them in Gaza, and they should get rid of them in a Palestinian state. The only place that they belong in is Iran, because that's a terrorist country. And that's all the Palestinians are terrorists. And all they do is just keep changing their terrorist name from Black September to
Arthur, can you do me a favor? I'm up against a hard break. Please hang on. 617-266-6868 is the number. I want to go right back to Arthur in Chestnut Hill. Arthur, do we have you?
You have.
Okay. Arthur, I want to read this to you. This is literally breaking. It broke about maybe 3-4 minutes ago. Because it's exactly what you were really feeding into what you were saying. So apparently there is a witness. Her name is Katie Kalisher. And she was at the museum when the actual shooting took place. And she said that she heard about 10 or 15 gunshots. They knew right away that people had been killed. And she said that this guy, Rodriguez, walked into the museum. So he's now just shot 2 Jews. He shot them dead on the street. And he then comes in and he says, "This is a Jewish museum, right?" And she says, "Yes." He says, "Well, do you think that's why they were killed?" And she says, "My God, I hope not." And then, this is Rodriguez, he pulled a keffiyeh from his bag and then said to Katie Kalisher, "I did it. I did this for Gaza." And then he started shouting, "Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine." So, Arthur, I don't know how much more clear the evidence can be. He wanted to murder Jews. He targeted Jews. He did it for Gaza. He pulled out his keffiyeh. And then he said, "Free, free Palestine." This was an act of not just anti-Semitism. This was an act of pro-Palestinian terrorism on American soil. Am I wrong, Arthur?
Absolutely not. And by the way, if you want to kill Jews or you want to kill Christians or you want to kill blacks, we're not hard to find. You know, you can go anywhere and kill unarmed people, you know, with a gun, because these people are cowards and murderers. And if Obama was calling the shots, which he probably still is, he'd call this workplace violence. The fact of the matter is if you want a free Palestine, they're going after the wrong people, the pro-Palestinian people. They should be going after Hamas. That's the reason they don't have a free Palestine state, is because of the terrorists that turn their cause into terrorism. You know, and as long as we tolerate it, and which was what we've been doing it for all this time, you know, we don't have to tolerate anything, but we do. You can't negotiate with terrorists, and that's what we're doing. Okay, and as long as we turn around and give in to their hostage taking, they take more and more hostages, because look what happens. And it goes back to right when Iran, when they first came into power, that turned them into something by when they took the hostages. And by the way, I have no idea why Trump is negotiating with Iran to say that they can't have a nuclear weapon. You know, we've been saying you can't have a nuclear weapon for 30 years, and guess what? Do they pay attention? Since when do they listen to us? They turn around and laugh at us. And Trump is negotiating with a terrorist nation. We should have taken them out. And the longer we don't use military force, because that's the only thing these people understand. These animals is force and strength. Otherwise, they just continue going on just like before. And the Israelis were foolish to turn around and give them a place. And the Palestinians, as we both know, Jeff, teach their children when they're 3-4 years old to kill Jews. I mean, they were cheering in the streets. Well, when they came back from that October 7th attack, they were cheering in the streets when the towers came down. Every time there's an attack on America, these people are cheering, and we turn around and take their side. Exactly, these are the people who hate America, and there was a great Jewish person who wrote a song, "God Bless America," and we don't celebrate that enough. Why do we support all the bad guys and not turn around and look after the good people?
Oh, you're dead on. No, Arthur, you're right. Everything what you said is not 100. It's 1,000% correct. But this is what I want to ask you, Arthur. The perpetrator, okay, this gunman, okay, this Elias Rodriguez, was not raised in a Palestinian camp, right? This is, he's a man of the left. He's a progressive, hangs around college campuses. So this is not something they've created in Gaza or in the West Bank. How do you get to the point, 30 years old, an American leftist, a progressive, a big, AOC Bernie supporter, to the point now, we're not just talking about disrupting college campuses, taking over buildings, saying stupid stuff, harassing Jewish students. We're talking now taking out a gun, 10, 15 shots, boom, 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 point blank range, and now you've got 2 Jews dead on the streets of Washington, D.C. How did he get to that point, Arthur? 1 minute, go.
Well, you know what? We don't have all the information on this guy. This just happened, and time will get everything out about this guy. There are other people. There are people who know this guy, that have been with this guy, that know something about this guy. We don't have all that information, and the only media that's going to turn around and actually try to find something out is people like yourself, or Fox, or Newsmax. Forget anybody else. And in their case, they may try to hide it. But now, like you pointed out before, they're going to turn around and celebrate this guy as somebody who turned around and took up the cause, and like you said, a good looking guy, because of what they saw, what happened with Mangione. It just is. I don't know what's to happen to us as a nation, but you know what? We tolerate the too much that we shouldn't, and it's.
Well, you're completely right, Arthur. As always, excellent call. Okay, I played it earlier, just very quickly. Let me just play it again. So I just want you to think about this. You've got a young couple; they're in their 20s. One, Yaron Lashinsky, is an Israeli. Works at the Israeli embassy, served 3 years in the IDF before that. And you've got a Jewish American. She was born in the United States, of Jewish heritage, who graduated from Kansas, Sarah Lynn Milligan. They're in love. They're in their late 20s. He had just bought a ring, an engagement ring, several days ago. He was going to propose to her in Jerusalem next week. It's a loving couple. They're holding hands. They just spent an hour and a half or 2 hours at a packed reception for young Jewish professionals in Washington, D.C. And now they're, heading out. And just think of their mindset. You're in love. You just had a wonderful evening. You're anticipating a wonderful engagement, a wedding, getting married, having children. The whole world is in front of you. And lurking in the shadows is a left-wing lunatic who is apparently was pacing back and forth in front of the museum. People saw him. He looked a tad nervous, but they said overall he was just pacing and pacing and pacing. And when he saw 2 couples come out, there were 4 people in all, he calmly walked up to them, took out his gun, and emptied the magazine, fired about 10 or 15 shots at point-blank range. Boom, 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 boom. They never had a chance. Both Yaron and Sarah collapsed to the ground, blood everywhere. And as they lay dying, they hadn't died immediately, they would die a little bit later. But as they lay on the ground, bleeding and dying, he just tossed the gun away and went inside the museum. Now, I'll be honest, my first reaction is, thank the Lord the guy didn't reload and then go into the museum, because again, it's full of Jewish people, and just randomly go boom, 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 boom. So for whatever reason, he just tosses the gun. And then, as we now have eyewitness accounts emerging, walked in and said, I did it. I did it for Gaza. And he took out a kafia. And then as he's being handcuffed, he starts screaming and yelling, roll cut 12, Mike.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
And I don't know, there's someone else there, but someone is yelling, long live Hamas. So one is yelling, long live Hamas. And by the way, free, free Palestine is what they're chanting on these college campuses at these anti-Semitic pro-Hamas rallies that keep erupting over and over again. So this is their chant. This is their slogan. And now it's led to murder. An American of Jewish descent or Jewish heritage is dead. An Israeli staff member is dead. They both worked at the embassy. And we are very lucky that the death toll is only 2. Now, this has shocked. Trump was shocked. Pam Bondi was shocked. Dan Bongino said he could not believe this is happening on the streets of America, never mind in the nation's capital, a stone's throw away from the FBI's field office. And he said this was clearly targeted. This was anti-Semitic. This was aimed at Jews to kill Jews. Period. Full stop. This was anti-Semitic terror, pro-Palestinian terror on American soil. So I want to ask all of you, it's a double-barreled question. A, how do you feel about this? In other words, are you now afraid that we're going to see an escalation in left-wing violence? This is another example of left-wing terrorism. There is no question about it. This man is a man of the left. He has been involved in progressive left-wing causes going back at least a decade. He is a huge supporter of AOC and Bernie Sanders and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Ayanna Pressley and Elizabeth Warren. So he is a creature of the radical left. And secondly, to Jewish Americans in particular, are you now afraid that this is going to become common here, like it's common in Europe and common across the Middle East? That you can be killed at any moment by some anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic whack job. 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. Mike in Lynn. Thanks for holding, Mike, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, Mike.
Another sad subject, I'll tell you. It's just unbelievable around the world and locally now. Yeah. And I had the cancer. Not had it. I wish I'd had it. But I had it. But I've got it. But anyways, with that being said, this Jewish attacking and all that. My brother was a guard in the synagogues, and he had a real bad stroke back about 6 months ago. And his daughters, being nurses and a doctor, they called the head of their hospitals in Boston because he's up around Lowell. They said, don't try to move him here, get him there, and we'll call them and tell that little hospital up there or smaller hospital what to do to him. I talked to him in his bed at night. You know, I mean, I'm giving credit to the Jewish doctors that saved his life on a phone calls. Okay? But back with that, if I might make a comment on Iran. Iran was in power under the Shah, 52 to 79, the morning of the revolution. My best lady friend was the widow of the IRG, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and 4 other jobs. He lived with the king from age 6 in the palace and went to Switzerland. Okay? They were for American Western living, bringing the Iran people to that. And then Khomeini came back out of Paris and had the green, the citizenry had the green movement. And Obama wouldn't let anybody go from the U.S. I couldn't get a visit from that family they wanted me to marry into, believe it or not. And they couldn't have visitors, and I couldn't go there. And I couldn't go to Canada to meet the young lady that was under a code name. But the Iranian people are good people. It's the regime, like in most countries around the world. And, you know, there's so many of them. I honestly don't know the Gaza thing and everything else with my job and going to school at night and my father yelling at me about stuff. I need somebody to sit down and tell me in like a half hour, an hour, the tips of the waves of what that's all about. But what's going on over there, all I'll make a comment on is it's disgusting, it's threatening, it's dangerous. I believe that most definitely, I have no knowledge, but the people that I've heard from do. They're watching it closely for our government. They know there's terror cells all over the place.
Oh, you nailed it. Nailed it. No, look, Mike, this is to me a two-pronged issue, okay? And you put your finger right on it. What we're watching now is the rise of left-wing terrorism. Again and again and again. We're seeing it over and over and over now. And this guy is a leftist through and through. He's embraced the Palestinian cause. He's an extension of what you're seeing on college campuses. But the other thing that you're seeing, and this is the larger point you're making, is that the Islamists are exporting their extremism around the world.
Ambassador, our hearts go out to you and your staff. I spoke to the President of the United States multiple times tonight on behalf of the President. His prayers are with all of us, all of the Jewish community, everyone in Washington, D.C., state, local, and federal agencies, and our great U.S. Attorney, Jeanine Pirro, who will be prosecuting this case, will be doing everything in our power to keep all citizens safe, especially tonight our Jewish community. Our prayers go out. We have the FBI. All of our federal agencies will work hand in hand with you, Chief, as we have done, and you, Mayor, to do everything we can to keep our citizens safe. We will follow the facts. We will follow the law. And this defendant, if charged, will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
That, of course, was Attorney General Pam Bondi. You can tell visibly shaken. Very upset last night. I don't blame her. Trump apparently is extremely upset as well. Bibi Netanyahu is outraged. Condemnations now are coming from all over the world. A left-wing terrorist. There's no getting around it. This was an act of left-wing terror. Elias Rodriguez deliberately targeted and killed an Israeli couple. They were, in fact, one was a Jewish American who was about to be engaged to an Israeli staff member who worked at the embassy, and they were leaving a Jewish reception, a young professional Jewish reception, and as they walked out, he was waiting for them. It wasn't them in particular. Frankly, any Jew would have done. He wanted to kill Jews. He admitted it. That was the purpose. Kill a Jew, any Jew. And so he walked up to this couple who were, by the way, going to be formally engaged next week in Jerusalem and shot them point blank range. He then tossed away his gun and very coolly, methodically walked into the museum, this capital Jewish museum, admitted that he did it, said he did it for Gaza, pulled out a kafia, the Palestinian shawl, and then started chanting, "Free, free Palestine, free, free Palestine." And what is most striking, there is no condemnation at all from AOC, no condemnation from Bernie, No condemnation from Elon. Some people did something. Omar. There's no condemnation from Rashida Tlaib. And I could go on and on. The Democratic left is silent. And I think they're silent because this was one of their own who, while they're talking the talk on campus of killing Jews and wiping Israel off the face of the map and killing as many or ethnically cleansing as many Israelis as possible, this one took their rhetoric and put it into action. Now, it's off topic, obviously. It's a depressing topic, but just so that you know, there is some very good news, and we'll probably talk about it tomorrow. But the House of Representatives, maybe about half an hour ago, passed, barely by the skin of their teeth, but it doesn't matter, they passed Trump's big, beautiful bill. And it's on its way now to the Senate, where it looks like it's going to pass the Senate, hopefully by July 4th. They're going to get this thing to President Trump's desk. The House was seen as a bigger hurdle, a tougher hurdle than the Senate. And so Trump has got a major victory because, as I said last night, this is the only thing now that can stop him is if they block the big, beautiful bill. This bill, I am telling you, once it's implemented and passed, will unleash an economic boom. Wages and jobs are going to soar. The stock market is going to skyrocket. I mean, this will cement Trump's economy and Trump's legacy. So it is a huge victory for the president and his agenda. So I know this is a very depressing topic, but not everything is bleak. There is some very good news as well. But look, in the end, if you're the parents of these two, poor Jewish people killed, if you're the parents of Yaron Lashinsky or of Sarah Milligan, you just lost your children. And they were cut short in their prime. They were in love. They were going to be married. They were going to have a family. They had the whole world in front of them. And simply for being Jewish, simply for being of the Jewish faith and the Jewish persuasion, they are now dead. 617-266-6868. Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Bob.
I'm tickled to death about that bill passing last night, but that's not why I called. The reason I called is because as the Democrats are screaming all the time, I want this guy to have due process. I want the due process to try him, find him guilty, give him the death penalty, and I don't want him hanging around in prison for 20 years like the bomber from Boston. What say you?
Oh, I agree. Bob, this to me, this screams death penalty. I mean, if this is not death penalty, I don't know what is. No, really. And again, I don't want to rehash everything. I've described what he did, but he waited. He waited. He was pacing. He was waiting. This was cold-blooded, deliberate murder. It was terrorism, but I mean, it's not spontaneous. It's not he was in a rage. It's not he came out of a rally and they pumped him up with, Palestinian slogans and he was half out of his mind. No, he was cool, calm, collected. He thought about this. He planned it. And I honestly, Bob, I don't know what's more chilling, that he didn't specifically target his victims. In other words, it's not like he said, I want Sarah Milligan and I want, Yaron Lashinsky. It's not like, it was just any Jew will do. They just got to be a Jew. So it's like, I guess it was, on social media and they gave out pamphlets. And so everybody knew at the Capitol Jewish Museum, big reception. All these people are young Jewish professionals. Members of the Israeli embassy are going to be there as well. So everybody there is Jewish. Okay. Everybody. So you're there saying, well, this is it. I mean, if I want to kill a Jew, here it is. And he just waits. And 4 walked out. That's all he needed. And the four that walked out, aha, Jew, 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 Jew. And he just shot him point blank. And for what remorse? He's proud of what he did. He's chanting free, free Palestine. I did it for Gaza. In other words, I mean, I don't know how you escape the death penalty. It's like, basically, yeah, I did it, yeah. And I'm telling you, that's the reaction among many on the left. I guarantee you, yeah, okay. 2 down, 7 million to go. That's their attitude. Now, look, Bob, I want to ask you this, and I want to ask the audience this. Trump, as you know, has a very bold, provocative plan when it comes to the Gaza Strip. Israel now is launching a massive offensive. They're going to wipe out the remnants of Hamas, smash all of their tunnels, and Bibi now says they're going to retake all of Gaza. That you cannot live in peaceful coexistence with Hamas. He's had it. So they're not just going to wipe them out. Now Israel is going to reoccupy or retake the Gaza Strip, all of it. Trump is saying that's fine in the short term. But in the mid to long term, I want the Gaza Strip to be under American control or an American protectorate. And he's already now gone to the Libyan government and said, will you take 1 million Gazan Palestinians? In other words, I don't want them living in this hellhole. We'll fly them out to you in Libya. We'll give you an aid package. You can build them, apartments and homes and neighborhoods and parks and schools and hospitals. And so they can live in Libya and not live in, this hellscape, which is now the Gaza Strip. So Trump is now saying, I'm going to take over Gaza. We're going to fly out at least 1 million of them. The rest can stay if they want. It's up to them. But essentially now we are going to get rid of Hamas and we are going to transform the Gaza Strip into an American protectorate and turn it almost into an international city and develop restaurants and cafes and hotels and terrorism. Bob, in the wake of this terrorist atrocity, should Trump rethink his Gaza initiative? If just supplying weapons to Gaza is leading to this, what the hell is going to happen if we take the place over? What say you?
Well, I got to admit this is above my pay grade, and no matter what Trump, in my book, no matter what Trump does or wants to do, it's okay with me. So far, I couldn't be happier with what he's done.
Bob, as always, thank you very much for that call. John in Lowell, thanks for holding, John, and as always, welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, John.
Jeff, this is exactly why arrests at the top have to be made immediately. You let them get away with what they're getting away with. What do these clowns think it's okay to do?
I just keep doing what they've been doing.
It starts at the top, Jeff. We have to stop waiting. We have to stop waiting. We all know what's going on. We all know, Jeff, there's no way in the world they don't have evidence against every single one of these clowns. So do it. And do it like they did it, with cameras on at 3 a.m. This is not a game, Jeff. This is war. This is your country right here, right now. It's now or never, Jeff.
John, I've got to ask you, and you're completely right. It is now or never. And that's why I've been very hard on Bondi and on Kash Patel and on Dan Bongino, not because I don't wish them well or I have anything personal against them. I don't. Quite the contrary, actually. It's like, I know you're right. The window is very, it's very narrow. And time is of the essence, and we have to move because the swamp is going to get bigger and stronger, and they're going to consolidate. And if Trump loses the midterms, which is very possible, or the House of Representatives, he's going to be playing defense for the last 2 years of his term. And we're not going to be able to get any of these people out. So it's, as you said, it's now or never. It's do or die. But John, I've got to ask you what happened at, was it just past 9 o'clock last night? Did you ever think that you would live to see the day that in the United States of America, you would have radical activists with a keffiyeh, the Palestinian shawl, gun down 2 Jews on the streets in downtown Washington, D.C., and chanting, "Free, free Palestine"? Did you ever think that this would happen, of all places, here in America? I mean, I'm just curious. What's your reaction?
Jeff, I never thought that would happen, but you know what I think is going to happen? I think there's going to be an EMP that goes off because they're not playing games, Jeff. We are. And I've thought that for years. It's just a matter of when, Jeff. God forbid, but it's going to happen. Mark my words.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, that's why you got to nip this in the bud. That's why that's why Trump understands this. He goes, this anti-Semitism on these campuses. He goes, you don't look. This is like cancer. Here, like Joe Biden's, like prostate cancer. You don't treat it early. It metastasizes, and then it gets into your bones. And once it gets into your bones, you're in trouble. And that's my fear now. Has it now metastasized politically to the country? This anti-Semitism, this Jew hatred, this terrorism. Instead of, us obliterating Hamas, it's almost like Hamas is coming here. So I know Bibi's winning on the battlefield, but in the battle of ideas, Hamas is winning. We're not. And they're getting deeper and wider and more popular on campuses, in the media. They own most of the Democratic Party now. They are all pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian, anti-Semitic Jew haters. And it's only getting worse. So I'm with you, John. Either we deal with this now or, my God, I mean, it's going to get worse and worse. John, thank you very much for that call, as always, and have a great weekend, my friend. 617-266-6868. And that's why Trump wants to defund these universities and say, look, either you weed out and root out this anti-Semitism, or you're not going to get any taxpayer dollars. But now I think the anti-Semitism is now spread from the campuses, from the universities, and now it's on the streets. And look, again, we're lucky. It almost sounds insensitive to say this. I look at the picture of these two. It's heartbreaking. But he targeted 4. It could be 4 dead. And at this guy, he went into the museum, but he brought the gun with him into the museum. Like this witness, she says it herself. She goes, I got chills going down my spine. She goes, all I'm thinking is, this is the man who just gunned down 2 people on the street 20 yards away from me. And he comes back into the museum. If he had his gun and just reloaded, I'd be dead. Other people at this reception would be dead. So, we're in a way lucky that it's not, it's just, it's 2 dead. It's not 4 dead, 5 dead, 10 dead, 15 dead, 20 dead. 617-266-6868. Is it Renee? Renee in Methuen. Thanks for holding, Renee, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Renee.
It's Irene, actually. But
Irene. I'm sorry, I have... Okay, now I have Irene on the board. All right. Boy, Mike, I got Mike, I got to tell you, man, it's incredible sometimes. All right, my apologies. Irene, please go ahead.
Yeah, that's sad what happened, but all these people that are for Palestine and all this, they should just group them all up, throw them over there. They're all cowards. Every last one of them, they're coming here and protesting. Why aren't they over there fighting? First of all, And second of all, I don't know if he was a legal alien or whatever he was, but this is what happens when you have people in your country that does not have any allegiance to your country and abide by your laws. People coming over here, they should be vetted. They should pledge allegiance to this country. We've taken away so many traditions that we have for ourselves and put in place other countries' traditions. You know what I mean?
Oh, you're dead on. Oh, Irene, I know exactly what you mean. And look, Irene, I promise I'll let you finish. I give you my word. But just because you're on fire, you're clicking on all cylinders right now. Look, Irene, you're right. Really, on every score, you're right. And here's what I don't get. You're a 30-year-old leftist from Chicago. What the hell does Gaza have to do with you and your life? What does this have to the point that you're going to shoot two innocent people at point blank range who've done nothing to you? Think about how radicalized, really, what a fanatic, what a lunatic you have to be to do this. That to me is what's so chilling. And look, Irene, I'm telling you, if we don't get a handle on this, this thing is going to spread. And I'm going to say something now to every single Jewish person listening, okay? To Jewish Americans, to Israelis, I don't care. Wherever you are, you have to start watching your back. I'm telling you now, if the media won't tell you, I'm going to tell you. The Democrats have put a target on every single one of your backs. These university presidents have put a target on every single one of your backs. And these scumbags, these rabble-rousers, these peddlers of hate and anti-Semitism on college campuses, they have now put a target on all of your backs. And what their goal is, make no mistake about it, what you see in Ramallah, what you see in the West Bank, what you've been seeing in Gaza for God knows how many decades, they want to bring that to New York and to Boston and to Washington and to Chicago and to Miami and to LA. That's what they want. They want the Jews not just out of Israel. They want the Jews out of the Middle East. They want the Jews out of Europe. They want the Jews out of America. In other words, they want to finish what Hitler started. And that Hamas Palestinian flag is the equivalent of the Nazi swastika. And anybody that flies it should be ashamed of themselves. Irene, final word to you.
Oh, and it's sad because as a whole, Jewish people are peaceful people. And it's so sad. Those two just starting out their lives and they're gone now. It's sad, you know.
And it's also unnecessary. You're completely right, Irene. It's sad. It's tragic. It's heartbreaking. It really is. Anyway, Irene, very good call, and I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868. We are reliving the 1930s. Trust me, as an historian, I'm telling you, the 1930s are coming back. Okay, a lot of reaction now coming in on the text line as well to the gruesome, just horrific murder, terrorist murder, anti-Semitic murder of Yaron Lashinsky, is I believe how you pronounce his last name, and Sarah Lynn Milgram. She was a Jewish American. She got her degree from Kansas University and then American University. She was also working at the Israeli embassy, which is where she met Yaron Lashinsky. He is an Israeli. And together they were fatally shot by a terrorist gunman, Elias Rodriguez, 30 years old, who yelled "Free, Free Palestine" in the Capitol Jewish Museum. This has now shocked the conscience of the White House, of the Israeli government and of people all over the United States and the world. And by the way, the text line, people are really reacting. Jeff, this is from 703. You can text us 70470, 70470. Jeff, we know the left is aligned with Hamas and their ideology. And the question now that I have is, when will the media be asking far left Democrats if they feel that their rhetoric caused this? Very good point, 703. This is from 508. Jeff, you're right. I've done some research. Elias Rodriguez was heavily involved with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. He was also a Black Lives Matter activist and a clear supporter of AOC and Bernie Sanders. When will the Free Palestine crowd condemn this, or are they going to continue to sit on the fence and be silent? Oh, no, they're going to be silent. They're not condemning this. In fact, last point, and I want to go back to the phone lines. So, multiple reporters have just spotted, this was maybe 10 minutes ago, they spotted Ilan, some people did something, Omar. So they spotted Ilan Omar right near Capitol Hill. And they ran after her and they said, do you have any comment on the shooting of the 2 Jews yesterday in downtown D.C.? And she said, I'm not going to go there for now. In other words, no comment. No comment. Now, I'm sorry, you can't say I condemn it? It's just the easiest thing in the world. There's no place for violence. I condemn it, blah, 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 blah. No, she can't even freaking condemn it. So her non-answer is her answer. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
Thank you very much for taking the call, Jeff.
My pleasure, CJ.
This is nothing new. Like my dad said, the American people have the shortest memory span of all. This is the same party, the Democratic Party, that cheered on and recruited Black Lives Matter, individuals who burned our city down, tore down our history, and killed Americans on American soil. These are the same people. Jeff, Trump needs to do something here. He really does. On these terrorist sympathizers that the courts are letting out, especially rulings by the Supreme Court. Pam Bondi has recently hinted removing habeas corpus, which would allow the federal government to hold these people for an extended period of time without being released on bond or without being released without a hearing. I think that's what President Trump needs to do now, because clearly the Supreme Court is against him on this. They want to keep these terrorists in the country. So as they were burning down cities and killing Americans, these brown shirts recruited and cheered on by the Democratic Party. Do you really think that any member of the Democratic Party cares about 2 Jews getting gunned down in Washington, D.C.? I think not. Ilya Omar was under investigation for marrying her brother and for securing loans, college loans. She needs to be put under investigation. And what quite possibly we could do here is then when these people are entering, these Muslims are entering this country, the first question they should be asked are, do you believe in Islamism, which is not only a religious but a political belief? They should not be allowed into the country. You have countries like Germany now that are turning back and deporting these immigrants that they let into their countries with open arms. You have Denmark and Sweden. It's going on throughout the European Union. They just do not want these people because they know that they're trouble. From what I see from Bibi Netanyahu, unless Hamas surrenders, there will be no one left there in the Gaza Strip. And that is the clear intent. But what people need to recognize, even as we are going to the polls of this November throughout this country, is that when we go there, we're not only voting for what we believe and we think is true. We're voting for our children, our grandchildren, our families. We are voting for people who put into place policies that will either make America great again or tear America down. And this is clearly shown throughout the country with these Democratic mayors and governors up for re-election who do not want to work with ICE or any other federal agencies to remove these criminals from the street. They need to be recognized for what they are. They are terrorist sympathizers. And terrorist sympathizers have no place in America. We need to keep America strong. We need to keep America free. And the only way that we can do that is to remove people from our country whose sole intent is to destroy it, Jeff.
Oh, amen. Oh, amen. Couldn't have said it better myself, CJ. Look, this is a stealth jihad. You nailed it. And this stealth jihad has now seeped into the universities, on college campuses, in the media. It's all over the Democratic Party. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. Let me throw this log on the fire. President Trump now has come out and said he's going ahead with his plan for Gaza. And as I mentioned to Bob, Israel now is making its final counteroffensive. Bibi Netanyahu has now told the Israeli public they're going to wipe out the remnants of the Hamas terror cells left in the Gaza Strip. And at least in the short term, Israel is going to take over or retake the Gaza Strip, all of it. In the mid to long term, Trump says he wants to make Gaza ultimately an American protectorate under American investment, American leadership, American guidance, and try to turn it into at least some kind of a viable entity on the Mediterranean. He wants to bring in hotels, investment, restaurants, cafes, tourism, and part of that is to remove or transfer 1 million Palestinians from Gaza to Libya and provide, aid there for construction, for homes, apartment buildings, suburbs, areas for them to live, schools, hospitals, parks, to get them out of what Gaza has now turned into, which is, as I said, a third world hellscape. And many Palestinians do want to leave. They don't want to live in that squalor and misery anymore. And some Palestinians are now protesting against Hamas openly on the streets. So clearly now Hamas it's up against the wall. Hamas now is dying. It is now slowly being obliterated by Bibi and the Israeli army. My question to you, when you look at what just happened last night and how the radical left has been inflamed by what Israel has done in Gaza, how they will not let go the pro-Hamas anti-Semitic propaganda ideology that they've embraced, should Trump go ahead with his Gaza plan? Because I'll tell you this, he goes ahead with his Gaza plan and starts transferring 1 million Palestinians to Libya. And Gaza now eventually becomes something that we're completely responsible for. If you think the left is going crazy now, wait till that happens. You're going to see college campuses explode. You're going to see massive protests on the streets. And my fear is they're going to make acts of terrorism in the future make yesterday look like a Sunday picnic. And so in the wake of what happened yesterday, should Trump rethink his Gaza plan and keep the United States out? In other words, if Israel and Bibi want to take it over again, God bless them. It's theirs. They can have it. But the United States should stay out. Or Should we now come in, take it over, and finally settle the problem once and for all? 617-266-6868. Where do you stand on this issue? Greg in Maine. Thanks for holding, Greg, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Good morning.
Hi,
and
Greg.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you for being the voice. I'm not an activist, and it is so appreciated to have you be the voice of so many of us that sit in silence, and our frustration builds on a daily basis. But to your point, I think President Trump should double down. I don't know if displacing the refugees to Libya works. I mean, Libya's got its own issues.
Greg, we just lost you, Greg.
This individual.
Okay, Greg, hold on. Greg, we lost you. We lost you at the point where you said, I don't know if displacing or removing the Palestinians to Libya will work because Libya has its own issues. And then it's like you just fell off the face of the earth. Could you just take it from there, Greg?
Yeah, so Libya's got their own strife, their own disbelievers, or their own radicals that are kind of, they might be silent today, but if you add one combustible agent to another combustible agent, you're not sure what you're going to get for the reaction, right? The bottom line is I'm not sure if that chemistry is going to work. I think Trump should double down with his plan on Gaza and making it and rebuilding it. That's a beautiful, positive thing, right? But at the end of the day, I don't know where they get displaced to. I mean, Africa has issues all over it. So many countries have so many issues, which again is probably one of the reasons why Israel is hated so much. They're inflexible. Their belief system, the integrity of their belief system, you see Catholicism watered down, right? You don't hear that about Judaism. You do not hear how they're changing their stance on this or changing their stance on that. And I think that's why they're so hated, because they're the integrity of their belief system.
Well, you're right. No, they got a spine of steel, and they don't back down because they can't afford to back down, because they can't afford the illusion that we have in this country and that many Europeans still have, that Islam is a religion of peace. They understand what radical militant Islam is. They know what these Islamists want to do. To the Christians, who they're slaughtering right now as we speak, and ultimately to the Jews. They live with it every single day. So they can't afford to go soft. If they go soft, they're finished. They're gone. I mean, literally, they'll be wiped out. And look, Greg, I think the only reason why Trump is offering Libya this is because the Libyans, I think, are the only ones who want to take them. You see, Greg, I think you've really, in a way, you've put your finger on the whole issue. If these Palestinians, just objectively, if they're this poor, noble, dispossessed, oppressed people yearning to be free, how come nobody wants them? Nobody wants them. And I don't mean we in America don't want them, or Europe doesn't want them, or Canada doesn't want them. Forget that. I'm saying literally, Jordan doesn't want them. Syria doesn't want them. Lebanon doesn't want them. Turkey doesn't want them. Iran doesn't want them. Iraq doesn't want. Nobody. The Saudis don't want. The Saudis, forget us having money. Forget us rebuilding Gaza. Honestly, Saudi Arabia could rebuild Gaza, Greg, in 2 weeks. Here, Qatar. I just read a piece yesterday in the Wall Street Journal. The country now that spends the most money, even more than China, on lobbyists in Washington and in influencing colleges and universities, it's Qatar. They're spending billions and billions and billions to influence the Democrats, to influence the Republicans, to try to influence the Trump administration. But apparently, so many of these protests on college campuses, these anti-Semitic, pro-Palestinian protests, all funded by Qatar. And I mean, they're spending a lot of cash. They're buying up, I'm talking entire wings and departments of our elite universities. Money seems to be no limit for these people. And by the way, they're influencing media and conservative media. They put $50 million into Newsmax. I didn't even know this. 50 mil. And apparently now Newsmax's coverage of Qatar has been softening because of it. My point is, Qatar, they're swimming in oil money. Now, they could rebuild Gaza in, as I said, in 10 days. Qatar doesn't want them. They can afford to take them in. Qatar doesn't want them. Kuwait doesn't want them. Saudi Arabia doesn't want them. Now, why is that? People, you have to ask yourself, why? Why? Really, why? Are they fellow Arabs? Yes. Are they fellow Sunni Muslims? Not even Shia. They're Sunni Muslims, like the Saudis, like the Qataris, okay, like most of the Middle East. Yes. But you still don't want them? Why? Because they're trouble. That's why. Wherever they go, it's trouble. And that's why they're like, no. Hey, we foist them on the Jews. Let the Israelis deal with these people. We don't want them. So my question is, if the Muslims in the Middle East don't want them, okay, I'm going to take a few more calls, I promise. And then there's some other issues I think are very important that we need to discuss as well. But before I go back to the blazing phone lines, the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Do you support President Trump's plan to turn Gaza into an American protectorate? Trump says, yeah, he's still going ahead. Bibi and Israel are about to win their war. He's going to give them time to finish off Hamas. I think in the short term, temporarily, Israel will take over Hamas. But the plan is eventually to transition in the mid to long term, that the United States, almost the baton is passed from Israel to America, and that we will then turn the strip into our own protectorate. And Trump says he's going to ask the world to contribute, countries in the region to kick in money, but he wants maybe even a military base there for the United States. But above all, he wants a lot of investment. He wants tourism. He wants beaches. He wants hotels. He wants restaurants. And many Palestinians he is going to fly out or help fly out to, it looks like Libya is willing to take them, about 1 million. And we will kick in substantial aid and other countries will chip in as well for their new homes, their communities, their apartment buildings, restaurants, cafes, schools, hospitals, parks. In other words, if many Palestinians want to leave, Trump says, let's help them leave. Libya is willing to take them in, but ultimately we will take over the Gaza Strip. Do you support it? Yes or no? Should it become an American protectorate? A, yes. B, no. I want to hear from you, Kuhner Country. Mike thinks this is going to be a very, very tight poll, and I agree with him. So far, what is it, Mike? I think it's going 66, 67% say no, 33% say yes. I think that's going to tighten up. Oh, really? Okay, 73 now percent say no, and 27% say yes. So anyway, so yes does seem to be losing, but it's still early in the poll. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote via X, and I was active again last night. My handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, KUHN is in national ER. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff, and thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, Andy.
First off, Jeff, to answer the question you just put up, I'm a no because I don't think another U.S. nation-building effort does anybody any good. What I do think Trump needs to do, either instead or regardless, is revisit what he did with Iran in his first term, shut off all the money to Iran, isolate them economically, and this time stand our ground until the green movement in Iran is able to get rid of that Islamo-fascist regime over there. And what that'll do is that'll break this de facto World Bank that always comes about with Iran to fund international terrorism. Now, I want to move on to the tragedy that happened yesterday in D.C. This guy, first of all, this guy, Rodriguez, they need to put him on a gurney with a needle in his arm, and if they can't get a jury to sign off on that, he needs to spend the rest of his life in a supermax prison. Now, the other thing is, we know that he was pacing back and forth in front of this Jewish museum, appeared to be somewhat nervous. That needed to be a red flag that he was up to no good. And the authorities should have immediately confronted him and said, hey, man, what are you doing? That would have probably nipped this in the bud. Now, this pro-Hamas activity on the college campuses that has enabled all of this, I think by now, Jeff, the Justice Department needs to look very seriously at a conspiracy against rights case against all these college students that have been involved with this. Clearly, in the federal sense, a case can be made. They have conspired to violate the civil rights of every person of the Jewish ethnic heritage. That is very clear. And I think it's wide open for that. And also, Jeff, this guy Rodriguez, this hatred, this Jew hatred, this guy did not get this from his culture growing up. There is serious brainwashing that has happened across America's college campuses.
Bingo. No, Andy, I think again, you're becoming one of our best callers, Andy, honestly. Every time you call, you're hitting it out of the park. Look, you're completely right. This case screams for the death penalty. And if they're not going to give him the death penalty, then I agree with you. Put him in a supermax, solitary confinement, let him be alone, 23 hours a day, 1 hour of sunlight, that's it, and send a message loud and clear. But look, I'm telling you, I know many Latinos. I love Latinos. I'll be very honest with you. I like Hispanics a lot. I can relate to them on many, many issues. They're very Catholic. They're very pro-family. I could go socially conservative. I could go on and on. There's no anti-Semitism there. I mean, okay, fine. You meet one person here, one person there. That's life. But in general, no, there's no rampant anti-Semitism. You're completely right. This is learned behavior. And where did he learn it from? He learned it from his fellow comrades on the radical left, on the Democratic left. And, and we keep turning a blind eye over and over and over as if we think if we just bury our heads in the sand, that it's somehow going to magically all go away. When you've got Rashida Tlaib with a map in her congressional office that says Palestine over Israel, when you've got not just Tlaib, but AOC, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Jasmine Crockett, these are all the faces and the leaders now of the Democratic Party, and Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, I could go on and on. who keep constantly praising Hamas and Hezbollah and make excuses for jihadism and Islamic terrorism and keep deliberately fomenting this hatred against Jews here in America and around the world. Well, what do we think is going to happen? You keep chanting free, free Palestine. You keep saying over and over again that Israel is an apartheid state, which is a lie. That Israel is committing genocide, which is a lie. That Israel is the Fourth Reich, a Nazi regime, which is a grotesque lie. It's a blood libel. Then these idiots are going to start to believe it. And Andy, look, what I'm urging all the audience to do, this is the most chilling part of all of this. Watch the video. The audio doesn't quite do it justice. It is the absolute fanatical certainty in this guy's face and in his eyes that what he did, he's 1,000% self-righteous. He's 1,000% certain that what he did was right. Now, you're not, I don't know what, that's the other thing. Pick up a gun. I mean, if you really hate Israel that much and you really love the Palestinians that much, then pick up a freaking gun and go fight the Israeli army. But no, like a coward, you pick on two defenseless, innocent people, civilians, who are coming out of a reception at 9 o'clock in the evening, and you shoot them dead at point blank range. But after you do it, you're proud of yourself? You're patting yourself on the back? Where does that come from? And you can tell on his face, his self-righteous, smug, arrogant face, that if I interviewed him, you know what he would say? Oh, they just talk the talk. I walk the walk. They say kill Jews. I actually killed 2 Jews. They say death to Israel. I actually killed. I created death for one Israeli and another Jewish American. In other words, hey man, I'm the real deal. Like Luigi Mangione. Now, I can go on and give you case after case, whether it's transgender shooters, whether it's Luigi Mangione, whether it's Antifa, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's now this case. Look at the rise of political terrorism and open violence on the left. This is not going to get better. This is only going to get worse. And so I appreciate Pam Bondi showing up. I can hear the passion in her voice. I know she's going to throw the book at this guy. But you nailed it. These college campuses have now become breeding grounds. Not just for the 1930s all over again. Remember, they keep calling us fascists. Yet, who's pro-Israel? Trump and MAGA overall. Who's very pro-Jewish? Trump, MAGA. Who are the ones who are blatantly, openly anti-Semitic? The left. These college campus protesters, these college campus radicals. Who hates the Jewish state? They do. Who hates Jewish culture? They do. Who hates Jewish civilization? They do. Who literally wants to wipe out 7 million Jews? Hitler massacred 6. They want to do 7. They do. But they call us Hitler? Just look in the mirror, man. Look at them. And they have now become breeding grounds. Not just for the most vile anti-Semitism that I'm telling you is what you saw across Europe, not just in Germany, but across Europe in the 1930s. But now you're going to a different level. Because what they're saying is it's not enough to just talk. You have to act. And this guy acted. And already the media cover-up is beginning. Here, this was a huge story because it was a shock to official Washington, frankly, a shock to people around the world, a shock to the Israeli government. It's already now. Nothing to see here. Let's move on. Because the media doesn't want to hold radical left-wing terrorists accountable. Look, the Democratic Party is responsible for this. Their rhetoric fueled this. He's a creature of the Democrats. He's just doing what they're essentially saying people should do. You just take their rhetoric to its logical conclusion. It ends up with these two people dead. In fact, every Jew dead. I'm just being honest with you. So this is what AOC wants. This is what, and by the way, this is what communists do everywhere they seize power. Here, let's take South Africa. Okay, Andy, and then I'll give you the final word, I promise. Trump, as you know, met with the president of South Africa. That left-wing communist thug. They're not only persecuting white Afrikaners, which I think is obvious, and that's why I thought Trump was magnificent yesterday, how he humiliated him and humiliated the entire liberal media when he played the video of these white Afrikaners, the Boers as they're called, in mass graves, being mass murdered, their land, their farms being seized and confiscated. And there's a law in South Africa that they just passed earlier this year that you can seize white farmers' property, no compensation. No compensation. One of the most anti-Semitic countries on the face of the earth is South Africa. It's an open fact. They lead the charge against Israel at the UN. They're the ones who want Bibi arrested at the ICC. That guy that met beside President Trump yesterday, Ramaphosa, is not just an anti-white racist. He's a Jew hater of the worst sort. And the African National Congress, the party that Mandela led, and that has dominated post-apartheid South Africa, it is rife with Jew haters and anti-Semites. So my point being, Andy, is communists hate Jews. They've always hated Jews. Communists have always been anti-Semites. And so this alliance between the radical left and radical Islam is a natural alliance, because at their core, they both have the two same enemies. In fact, the three same enemies: Christianity, Jews, and America. And that's why they're like hand in glove. And that's why you've seen this natural alliance in every country around the entire world. And so the question now is, how far are we willing to go to nip this in the bud before, as I used my analogy earlier, this is aggressive prostate cancer. You catch it in the early stages, you're fine. You keep letting it go, it goes into your bone. And once it goes into your bones, just ask Joe Biden, you're in big trouble. To me, yesterday's anti-Semitic murders, that terrorism that we saw, that intifada, that's the mother of all wake-up calls. The cancer now has gone from the prostate into the bones. Final word to you, Andy.
Okay, final word, Jeff. You're clicking on all cylinders, on all your points, and one question I think we need to answer. I mean, when you look at the power of the mind control over these young adults, I think we also need to ask the question, are we also looking at a CIA brainwashing mind control operation that's on the same level as Operation Mockingbird was? If that's going on, we need to know.
It has all the traits of it, all the characteristics of it, Andy. Andy, again, thank you very much for your call. John, they're being brainwashed. Totally, completely. You can see that. And, look, I'm not saying the CIA made this guy kill these two poor Jewish people. Obviously, I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying, just watch, please, go see the video of him. Look at his eyes. Look at his face. Look at the fanatical certainty. But it's almost like a bit like a zombie as well. It's almost like he's been programmed now to kill. It's like, well, that they're scum. They're subhuman. These Jews are subhuman. In other words, what he's killing is this is in his mind. I'm telling you, this is what in his mind. I can tell you right now. He just killed Nazi SS butchers. You know, they're fascists, apartheid, the genocide, the Nazis. That's what Israel has become. On and on and on. So they and they're fed this and fed it and fed it and fed it. So just the way the Jews were seen as subhuman under Hitler and other fascist regimes, now they're increasingly seen as subhuman. And so it's like for him, it's like he would feel more if he shot 2 animals than the fact that he shot 2 Jews like that. You can see it on his face. John in Wakefield. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, John.
Good morning. Thanks for all that you do, Jeff. Jeff, just a quick vote online here is on that Trump plan to Gaza. I'm a B. Stay out. I don't think we need to get into that hornet's nest. Certainly not at this time in history. Jeff, I've been on hold since for about an hour and 40 minutes, and I'm not complaining about that. But what I did early on was make some bullets of things that I wanted to talk about. And what I'm hearing with your marvelous callers over and over again is a reiteration of what I've got down here. So I don't have any original thoughts. I'm with the patriots that are out there in Kuhner country. Just some thoughts. I do my devotions every morning, and I was reading through the Old Testament, and in Deuteronomy, there's a passage that I just want to end up with my quote here. But we talked about so many things all the time. We talk about mental illness, the media propaganda, the miseducation in the schools, indoctrination, the lack of faith, moral compass. But we're dealing with atheism, I think, and a jealousy that comes down to incredible envy. And in the 14th chapter of Deuteronomy, just quickly, it says...
John, can you do me a favor? I know exactly, I think I know the passage you're about to quote. I don't want to rush you, because it's a very important passage, and it makes a very powerful, important point. I'm up against it. Please, John, hang on. I'm going to come right back to you. Okay, let's go right back to John in Wakefield. John, I know you wanted to read a passage from the Old Testament. Please pick up where you left off.
Well, thanks. I appreciate this opportunity. It's very simply, it's right at the beginning of chapter 14. This is Moses speaking through to the Jews. He's the inspiration that he's God's messenger. He says, "You are the children of the Lord. You are a holy people, special treasure above all the peoples who are on the face of the earth." I think when non-believers hear that, their heads explode. But this is God speaking. And so I think with the atheism, with the envy, with the jealousy and all of that, people are going just apoplectic who are going to give you this this nugget here.
Well, John, look, this is one of the things I've observed about communists my entire life, is their hatred for Christianity and their hatred for the Jews and Judaism. And I think you're right. I think fundamentally it's rooted in the fact that they don't believe in God. And they hate God. In fact, the whole communist socialist project is to literally create heaven on earth. They're so arrogant. They think they're God. That's their fatal flaw. They're so full of arrogance and hubris. Think of the ultimate pride. That no, there's no heaven above. We know more than the creator. In fact, there is no creator. We're the ultimate creator. And we can create heaven, a utopia on earth. And so to do that, that's why, if you remember, Marx is very famous. By the way, Karl Marx, even though he himself was Jewish, was a rabid anti-Semite. Oh my, you got to read his stuff. Oh my God, what a filthy Jew hater. So this goes right at the source, the anti-Semitism, Marxism and communism. It's right there at the source. But anyway, let that go, as I like to say. They believe that they're creating heaven on earth. And so that's why they see Christianity and Judaism as their mortal enemies. And that's why they have to wipe them out. They have to massacre them. They have to crush them. They have to exterminate them. And you're right. That's a fundamental. They look at the state of Israel today, the way they look at the United States of America. And they say, whoa, 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 God, country, family? A Judeo-Christian, a Christian nation like America? A Jewish nation like Israel? No, 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 no. No. And that's why they're obsessed with bringing both Israel and America down. And to me, I don't know how many more anti-Semitic acts the left has to continue to perpetuate before Jewish Democrats wake up and realize they're not your friends. In fact, they're your mortal enemies. But anyway, hopefully yesterday, at least if there's a silver lining in what happened yesterday, is I hope now many Jewish Americans who vote Democrat will realize how come nobody on the left is condemning this? And the leading lights of the Democratic Party, the new fresh faces, AOC, she's still silent. Ilhan Omar was asked point blank by a reporter a couple hours ago. I'm not gonna go there. That's what she said. I'm not going there. You can't say the indiscriminate murder of two Jewish people because they're Jewish. That's no good. We shouldn't do that in America. No. So look at the silence. Where's Bernie? Bernie, he's supposed to be Jewish. He's a self-hating Jew, but let that go. Okay, he hates Israel, hates Jewish culture, hates Jewish civilization. Where's Bernie? Where's Elizabeth Warren? She's always flapping her mouth about something. Always. Nothing. Where's Nancy Pelosi? Where's Hakeem Jeffries? I'm not going to do this one after another. So it's obvious. They don't care. It was their rhetoric that caused it. He was one of them. He's an extension of what's happening on college campuses. And we're lucky it was only two. There could be a lot more bodies today. 617-266-6868. John, thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. Okay, just very, very quickly. This is from Eric on Messenger. And honestly, it's extremely politically incorrect. But it's 1,000, not 100. It's 1,000% true. And if I'm not here to speak the truth, then there's no point in me being behind this microphone. Jeff, here's what he wrote to me on Messenger. Jeff, if the real Hitler was still alive, he would support and favor the Democrats. Bingo. Of course he would. Of course. What are you, nuts? And we don't even have to speculate. Who is the leading white supremacist in the United States? David Duke. Hands down. The closest thing to, if there's a quote, I'm putting this in air quotes, an intellectual, quote unquote, leader of the sort of white supremacist, neo-Nazi, white nationalist movement in the United States of America, who's their kind of political guru, their ideas guy. Again, I'm putting ideas in quotes. It's David Duke. David Duke has said his favorite member of Congress is Ilhan Omar. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, lines are loaded. I just want to play a cut from yesterday with Trump's meeting with South Africa's president. And you're going to say, Jeff, what the hell does this have to do with this anti-Semitic terrorist murder that took place in Washington, D.C.? Please have confidence in the Kuhner man. It will all be very, very clear very soon. Listen now to Trump. And he asks the South African president, Cyril Ramaphosa, to his face, this is a public meeting, the media is all there, saying, so you're telling me there's no genocide taking place against these Afrikaners, these white farmers? Listen now to the South African president's response. Roll cut 1, a mic.
What would it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa?
Well, I can answer that for the president. It's for him. No, seriously. I'd rather have him answer. I'm not answering that. It will be.
Our president will respond to you. Thank you, Mr. President.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here. When we have talks between us on around a quiet table, it will take President Trump to listen to them. I'm not going to be repeating what I've been saying. I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me. So it will take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective.
Now, so the three people he's pointing to are white. He brought a couple of golfers with him from South Africa, so they happen to be white. So he's saying, wow, these white people wouldn't be with me here if there was a genocide actually taking place. Now, Trump drops the hammer. It's like, don't BS me. Like, I'm not in the mood for this. Roll cut 2, Mike. Sorry, roll cut 1A, my bad. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
That is the answer to your question.
But, Mr. President, I must say that we have, wait. We have thousands of stories talking about it. Sure. And we have documentaries, we have news stories, and that. Is Natalie here, somebody here to turn that? I could show you a couple of things, and it has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would, and turn the lights down. Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you.
Now the South African president's shocked. It's like, what? Now, the entire liberal media, this is the term they keep using now, ambush. All of them. They're all on cue. It doesn't matter. CNN, NBC, CBS. This was an ambush. He ambushed the South African president. So he says, no, turn down the lights. And he plays a video. And the video is showing what everybody knows. Roll cut 2, Mike.
There's nothing you can do. There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. Yes. South African occupy land. That's who we are.
Honorable member,
you want to do. You can withdraw my membership from this useless parliament.
Honorable. Yes, honorable member.
Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act. Shoot to kill. Nyamaza. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa.
Okay? Now he's saying kill the boar, kill the farmer, kill the boar, which is the white Afrikaners, the white farmers. Kill the boar, kill the farmer, and he's dancing. He's literally dancing like in joy, in ecstasy, like his bloodlust. Now, this is one of the top opposition leaders in South Africa. And I don't want to play all the exchanges yesterday. I mean, Trump just shamed him. And he said, this is one of your top people in parliament? And then he showed him video after video, the images of white farmers, mass murder, mass graves. One of them was 1,000 crosses. And you see these cars And these are relatives, family members paying their respects. These are all white farmers who have been butchered, massacred by these roving bands of black Marxist communist thugs, racists, pure anti-white racists. And then they kill them, and then they literally seize the farm. And let me just say one last thing. One of the most stunning moments yesterday is Trump picks out one of the white golfers that this South African president brought with him. And he said, well, look, I got to ask you. I mean, he brought you. You're here to make his case. You're a white person. I mean, do you feel persecution in your own country? And literally the white golfer in front of his own president, this president of South Africa, says, well, I mean, since you're asking, my brother is a farmer. He's been attacked by roving gangs of black thugs many times. My mother has been held up at knife point in her own home. She's lucky to be alive. He says, my other family members, they've been, they've been held at gunpoint as they robbed and looted our farms. He's lucky to be alive. So then Trump says, hold on, have any of your family members been killed? And then the golfer then says, well, no, we're very lucky. What we've done is we've put electric fences. So far, no one's been killed. But every day we pray that today is not the day we get killed. And then I can't do a very good South African accent, but it's a problem, Mr. President. It's a problem. It's a very serious problem. Violence against white farmers is a very serious problem, Mr. President. Actually, that's what Mike says. Every accent goes to Russian for me. But anyway, okay. But so he's like, in other words, like, he's not going to say it's a genocide because that'll really humiliate his own president. But he's saying is we're being persecuted. White farmers are being killed in huge numbers. And yeah, man, they're seizing our land. Now, you're going to say, Jeff, what the hell does this have to do with what happened in Washington yesterday? The Democrats went ballistic over Trump showing that video. The media went ballistic over Trump showing that video because their narrative is, this to me is unbelievable, that Trump should not be admitting 59, not even 60, 59 white South African farmers as refugees, that it is racist to bring in 59 refugees from South Africa who happen to be white. It's being white, it's like a disease. White people can never be victims. White people can never be persecuted. White people can never be murdered systematically and deliberately, as is clearly happening in South Africa, as happened in Tanzania, as happened in Mozambique, as happened in what used to be Rhodesia and now Zimbabwe. No, it can't happen. It can't happen. And so there is a hatred. And again, we're going right back to the radical left. Notice white privilege, white racism, white supremacy. That's all they talk about. That's all they indoctrinate the college kids and now increasingly high school students with. You should be ashamed to be white. You're an evil person if you're white. If you're white, you're a natural anti-Semite. You're a natural white supremacist or you're a natural Nazi. You're innately fascistic. You don't understand. You're an imperialist, conquering Nazi scumbag. Why? Because of the color of your skin. You're just born that way. You can't help it. So what I'm saying is that the left now has embraced clearly a racist and racialist ideology that is very similar, almost identical to what you saw in Germany, in Italy, in other fascist countries throughout the 1930s. Except it's the Jews, right, which was the big thing with Hitler, and now it's whites. Now it's whites. Now, I'm telling you, you saw it with BLM and you saw it with Antifa, but now it's going to get worse. White people are going to start to get targeted in this country just for being white. The way the Jews already are being targeted. In other words, let's go kill some white people. Oh, there's white people at a picnic? Oh, there's white people at a reception? Oh, there's white people coming out of a church or whatever? Okay, let's take them out. This is the kind of hatred, fanatical hatred. 950 on the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. And Mike is busting my chops. You sound Russian. Your accent sounds... I'm like, Mike, if you think you can do a little better on the doing a South African accent, please be my guest, Mike. Geez, 617-266-6868. Really, everybody's a critic. Dan in Concord. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Been listening for a while. What happened in Washington was horrible, absolutely horrible. I only wish that the same sense of horror could be applied to the scores of thousands of Palestinians that the Israelis are targeting every day. Civilians that had nothing to do with kidnapping or holding anybody. And the targeting of those civilians, and it's clearly targeting by the Israeli military, is really a huge disservice to Jews around the world, because Netanyahu is telling everybody that his actions are actions that are essential to being Jewish. And that's a problem, because they're essential to state power, and state power is acting, not Jewishness. And so he's putting Jews around the world at risk by saying, you are me, you support me because you're a Jew. It's a big problem. So that's what I wanted to say. The people who were shot, that was sick and useless, because somebody shot innocent civilians, stereotyped them, decided they were guilty. And that's exactly what supporters of Netanyahu and the Israeli government are doing, including yourself. And it's a shame. It's a real shame. Thank you.
Sorry, hold on. What am I doing? I don't quite understand. What exactly am I doing? So what? I'm somehow responsible for what happened in Washington? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No. In fact, I'm just saying that you spent much of this morning talking about Palestinians basically deserving what they're getting. All Palestinians. You haven't distinguished between Hamas or civilians, or you don't distinguish. And many people who support Netanyahu don't distinguish between civilians and combatants at all.
Well, the problem, as you know, and see, this is why I know you're a Jew hater, and I can tell you why honestly, because who started the attack? It was Hamas. Who butchered those men, women, and children? Hamas. Who hides in the hospitals? Hamas. Who hides in the civilian population and uses them as human shields? Hamas. Who's the one that's committed these unspeakable atrocities that led to this war? Hamas. Who's the one that's created this entire tunnel network, underground tunnel network? Hamas. Who was the one that used the last, 15 years? They had autonomy in Gaza. And what did they do? All they did was shell Israel day and night, with literally tens and tens of thousands of rockets. Who calls for the annihilation of the Jewish state in their charter and in their constitution? Hamas. So don't blame Israel for the reason that the Palestinians now are in the position that they're in. They voted for Hamas in overwhelming numbers. Opinion polls show they support Hamas in overwhelming numbers. So they want a war of extermination against Israel. Well, now they're getting it. And rather than condemning the Islamofascists, which is what Hamas is, you use the butchery of two innocent people to call this show and somehow make it seem, this is Bibi Netanyahu's fault? That this radical left-wing savage premeditatedly murdered two decent, innocent civilians who are about to be engaged? This is all now Israel and Bibi's fault? Hey, dude, look at yourself in the mirror, man. I mean, you want to talk about cold-blooded fascism. That's exactly what you're defending now. Go.
Oh, it's my turn to talk. Oh, great. So you're talking about the butchery that Hamas initiated on October 7th. And much of it, Jeff, was butchery. And much of it was war crime. So you're telling me that Israel's response as the most powerful military in the region with the most sophisticated technology of surveillance and military power. They don't discriminate between people they think are combatants and people who are innocent. It's not butchery when the Israeli government does it from the sky, but it's butchery for everyone else. Is that it?
No. And you're lying, and you know that you're lying. The reason why civilians are collateral damage is because, and you're not addressing this, Hamas hides among civilian populations. They hide in the hospitals. They hide in schools. They hide in suburban areas. They hide in the ground. So they're the ones who use civilians as human shields, but you don't condemn Hamas for that. And furthermore, by your logic, for example, World War II, well, then the whole war against Hitler and Nazi Germany, that was a genocidal war, according to you. Why? We bombed Dresden. We bombed Nuremberg. How many cities did we bomb where civilians were destroyed and killed? And the Nazis brought the war. The Germans supported the Nazis. You do this, you get what you deserve. The Hamas brought this war to Israel. You have no one to blame but Hamas. And the fact that you won't condemn Hamas, you should be ashamed of yourself. And on that note, bye-bye.